There's a quiet agony in holding on to someone who hurts you. Not the loud pain of betrayal or abandonment, but the slow ache of self-betrayal, the kind that whispers, maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." And sometimes, the person we're resisting letting go of is simply a mirror, reflecting what we haven't healed yet within ourselves. We don't stay because it's good. We stay because it's familiar, because somewhere along the way, we learn to confuse emotional chaos with connection. The wounds feel like home, the silence feels like suspense, and the pain, at least it proves we still feel. But this is not love. This is entanglement. This is you abandoning yourself piece by piece, in hopes they'll finally choose you whole. You are not meant to shrink just to keep someone close. You are not meant to carry the weight of their healing at the expense of your own. Letting go isn't weakness. It's an act of radical self-respect. The kind that says, I choose myself, even if it hurts, even if I don't know what comes next. Because staying in pain is a pattern, leaving it is a choice. And you are not here to be someone's emotional rehab. You're here to awaken, to break the cycle, to find peace, not just passion. And it all begins with this truth. Love does not require you to suffer. But if love doesn't require suffering, why do we still chase the ones who wound us? Because the mind doesn't seek what's good for us. It seeks what's familiar. And if chaos is what we grew up with, then chaos becomes comfort. Carl Jung believed that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. So, when you find yourself drawn to the same kind of pain over and over again, it's not fate. It's a pattern, a lesson trying to wake you up. We think we're choosing love, but often we're choosing repetition, a reenactment of old wounds with a new face. And we tell ourselves stories like, if I just love them enough, they'll change. If I'm patient enough, they'll see my worth. If I leave, I'll never find this again. But that's not love. That's fear dressed as devotion. You don't have to prove your worth through pain. You don't have to audition for love. You are allowed to walk away, not because you've stopped loving them, but because you've started loving yourself. True healing begins when you stop negotiating with someone who keeps showing you they can't meet you where you are. You're not here to fix them. You're here to free yourself. And letting go, that's not giving up. It's growing up. It's seeing the wound for what it is and choosing to stop touching it. This is the beginning of your return. Not to them, but to yourself. Letting go doesn't always look like slamming the door shut. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just not texting back, not explaining yourself for the 100th time, not holding space for someone who never made room for you. It's a slow return to self-respect, a subtle reclaiming of your own energy. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you can't become yourself if you're constantly shape-shifting to survive someone else's storm. So ask yourself gently, who am I when I'm not waiting for their love? Who could I become if I stopped trying to earn what should be freely given? Because love that asks you to betray your needs is not love, it's control. Love that drains you is not love, it's dependency. And love that only shows up in your silence was never love to begin with. You're allowed to want tenderness. You're allowed to crave consistency. You're allowed to outgrow chaos. But none of that can happen while you're still making excuses for their behavior, while you're still mistaking their inconsistency for mystery, their hot and cold affection for passion, their apologies for change. You are not the exception to their patterns. You are just the latest chapter in a book that will never have a new ending until you stop reading it. Letting go is hard, but staying in a cycle that kills your spirit, that's harder. Walk away, not because they're a villain, but because you finally realize you deserve a different story. They won't understand why you're leaving, because in their world, your self-abandonment was love. Your silence was agreement. Your forgiveness was permission. Carl Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And for too long, this pain felt like fate, like some twisted soulmate bond, written in the stars, when really, it was just the past replaying itself. Sometimes we're not in love. We're just addicted to the hope that they'll change, to the fantasy of who they could be, instead of the reality of who they've always been. So we stay. We rewrite red flags as growth opportunities. We spiritualize our suffering. We call it unconditional love, when really, it's just a fear of being alone. But real healing asks you to tell the truth, not about them, but about you. What are you avoiding by staying? What part of you still believes you have to suffer to be worthy? You were never meant to earn love through endurance. You were meant to be met, fully, freely, and without negotiation. Letting go isn't just about losing someone. It's about losing the version of yourself who settled for crumbs, who tolerated confusion, who mistook emotional chaos for depth. When you release them, you don't just free your heart, you free your future. It's okay if they never say sorry. It's okay if they never understand what they cost you. You don't need closure from someone who was never open to begin with. Give yourself the closure. Let the peace be your revenge. Let the healing be your rebellion. And let the letting go be the beginning of everything new. Sometimes we confuse connection with compatibility. Just because someone feels deeply familiar doesn't mean they're meant to stay. Carl Jung taught that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And often, clinging to someone who hurts us is a way to avoid facing the deeper pain within ourselves. We distract ourselves with fixing them, so we don't have to heal ourselves. We chase closure, so we don't have to sit with the silence. We tell ourselves, if I can just love them right, maybe they'll change. But that's not love. That's a wound begging to be seen. You are not hard to love. You were just trying to bloom in poisoned soil. Of course you felt confused. Of course you questioned yourself. They taught you love with conditions. They mirrored your insecurities, not your truth. The hardest part of letting go is not losing them. It's facing who you were while trying to be enough for them. But that version of you was doing the best they could, and now it's time to evolve. Letting go isn't a betrayal of love, it's the honoring of it. The decision to love without needing to suffer. The willingness to release someone who was never truly holding you. You don't need another apology. You don't need them to change. You need to walk away from the story that says you weren't enough. Because you are, you always were. And the moment you stop proving that to someone else, you finally start remembering it for yourself. This is the real work. Choosing peace over potential. Choosing truth over trauma. Choosing you. There's something insidious about emotional survival. It teaches you to confuse intensity with intimacy. You start mistaking unpredictability for passion, as if love must always come dressed in chaos. But Carl Jung's work reminds us, healing doesn't begin by fixing the other. It begins by understanding the version of ourselves. That thought we had to earn love through pain. Because the truth is, we don't just fall for people, we fall for patterns. We fall for the roles we were taught to play. Caretaker, peacemaker, the one who holds it all together. And when someone hurts us, we don't always walk away. We negotiate, we justify, we internalize. We become so fluent in their wounds that we forget our own voice. But letting go isn't an act of cruelty. It's a homecoming. It's the moment you stop over-explaining your needs. The moment you realize that a love that demands your silence is not a love worth keeping. You can mourn someone and still know they were not meant for your future. You can miss the moments without returning to the dysfunction. Letting go is not about forgetting. It's about refusing to abandon yourself ever again. Because the person you're becoming deserves softness, deserves safety, deserves reciprocity. And yes, it hurts to leave. It always hurts to grieve what once felt like hope. But one day you will look back and see it clearly. This wasn't your ending, it was your beginning. The point where you finally said, no more shrinking, no more settling, no more self-sacrifice. Just truth, just healing, just freedom. You were never too much. They were simply not enough. There is a subtle power in reclaiming your story. For too long, you may have believed your narrative was written by someone else, by their words, their actions, their indifference. But Jung teaches us that we are the authors of our own unconscious scripts. Letting go is the moment you start rewriting, not with anger or blame, but with compassion for yourself. You don't need to erase the past. You need to understand it, to see how those old wounds shaped your choices and how they still echo in the way you love. It's uncomfortable work. It requires facing parts of yourself you've avoided, the fears, the insecurities, the longing for approval. But in that discomfort lies freedom. When you free yourself from the story that trapped you, you create space for something new. Not just in relationships, but in how you see your own worth. You'll realize that love isn't a currency to be earned. It's a gift to be given, starting with yourself. So, forgive yourself for the times you stayed too long, for the times you doubted your intuition, for the times you believed pain was proof of love. Because every step toward letting go is a step toward reclaiming your power, toward living as the whole, radiant being you were always meant to be. And when you finally choose yourself, you open the door for others to see your true value, not the shadow you carried for so long, but the light you were born to shine. This is the path from hurt to healing, and it begins with one brave step: letting go. Letting go is not a single moment. It's a daily choice, a quiet commitment you make to yourself, even on days when the pain feels unbearable. Carl Jung showed us that healing is a journey inward. It's about meeting the parts of you that ache, that feel unworthy, that fear being alone, and whispering back with kindness, I see you, you're not alone. You may still feel the pull of old patterns, the urge to reach out, to explain, to fix things that can't be fixed. That's normal. It's part of the human heart trying to hold on. But each time you resist that pull, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. You prove to yourself that love doesn't mean losing yourself, that your worth isn't tied to their approval. Healing doesn't erase the scars. It honors them. It transforms them into wisdom, into the quiet strength that says, I survived, I grew, and now I choose peace. So keep choosing you. Choose your peace. Choose your growth. One day, this pain will be a chapter you've outgrown, not because you forgot, but because you finally remembered who you really are. And when that day comes, you'll smile at your reflection, grateful for the courage it took to let go. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your freedom. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with letting go of someone who's still alive, someone who once looked at you like you were everything, and then made you feel like nothing. It's confusing, because you're not just mourning the person, you're mourning the version of you who still believed in them. The one who stayed, who hoped, who saw the best in someone, even when they gave you their worst. Carl Jung believed that the people who trigger us the most are often carrying fragments of our own shadow. They reflect back the unhealed places inside of us, not to punish us, but to awaken us. So maybe it's not just about letting them go. Maybe it's about letting go of the illusion of who you thought they were, of who you thought you had to be for them to love you. Because real love doesn't ask you to prove yourself. It doesn't leave you questioning your worth, and it doesn't vanish the moment you set a boundary. So if you're hurting right now, if your chest is tight and your thoughts won't quiet down, pause, breathe, and remember, healing is not linear. You might miss them and still know they're not right for you. You might cry and still choose not to go back. Both can be true, and in that in-between, in the quiet moments when it's just you and your breath, you are becoming someone new, someone wiser, someone freer. This is where your power returns. Not all at once, but moment by moment, breath by breath. Letting go doesn't always feel like freedom at first. Sometimes it feels like emptiness, like standing at the edge of everything you thought you wanted and watching it crumble without a sound. But that emptiness, it's sacred. It's where your healing begins. Carl Jung once said, "Only what is really oneself has the power to heal." And in this silence, you return to yourself. You remember that love was never meant to feel like confusion, or like walking on eggshells, or sacrificing your soul just to be chosen. You remember that peace is not boring, it's safe, and safety is the soil where love was meant to grow. This journey hasn't been about forgetting them. It's been about remembering you, the parts of you that got lost in the noise, the parts that dimmed to make someone else feel bright, the parts that were never broken, just buried beneath pain. So now you stand in a new place, not as someone waiting to be loved, but as someone who is love. And that changes everything. If you've made it here, know this. You are brave, you are healing, and you are no longer available for anything that asks you to abandon yourself again. So take a breath. Let the past be a chapter, not a sentence. And when you're ready, choose peace, choose wholeness, choose you. And if this spoke to something deep inside you, you're not alone. Subscribe for more soul-deep reminders like this. Because your healing isn't just personal, it's universal. and the world needs more awakened hearts like yours. This is the Wisdom Seeker,